Because when you're having a conversation, you don't want to have to be thinking about, okay, I was going to put this word order, this word goes before the other word, and then, what's the thing I learned about the present perfect tense? Should it be the present perfect tense or should I use the simple past tense? You don't have time to think about that stuff. So how do you burn it into your brain? Habits. How do you get habits? I think writing is one of the best ways to practice, honestly. What are the real ways to improve your English? And when I say real ways, what I mean is we get these ideas about how to improve, and they're kind of general, and they're pretty easy to do. Watch more movies. Oh, okay. Learn 25 words a day. Well, that sounds pretty intense, but maybe I could do that. Well, what are the things that really work? Now, these are things that actually most people are not going to do. We're going to talk about how to improve your English in ways that most people are unwilling to do because it's hard. It's too much work. I don't know about that. That makes me uncomfortable. So I'm only speaking to about 20% of the people here, I think. 20% of you will say, yeah, this makes sense. I'm either already doing a lot of this stuff or I'm about to start because I'll do whatever it takes to be a good communicator. And the rest of you, well, enjoy the topic, I guess. Because a lot of people just aren't willing to do the work, right? It is work. It is work, and it's uncomfortable, and it's scary. It's all of those things. Okay? So we're going to go through it step by step. The first one is to read extensively. Now, I can already hear thoughts. I can already hear people saying, reading, it's so hard and time-consuming. How do I do it? What should I do, right? Let's first talk about why reading is good. And then we can get into maybe how to do it and how to sort of push yourself, right? When you think of reading as the best place to discover new words, new phrases, new grammatical structures, how things are used. How is the word actually used? The context of the word or phrase, the context of the grammar. If you look at a book as your resource for learning new things, there's nothing better. Because when you're watching a movie or a TV show, it's going by too quickly. You can't fully process it usually. In conversation, same thing. It's going by too quickly. You can't fully process it. But writing, you can see it right there in front of you. I don't know that word. Now I see it. Now I see the context. Now I can try to learn it in that context. It's very, very powerful. And over time, you're going to start picking up interesting syntax, grammatical structures, naturally, as you read. But the key thing is to find reading that you actually enjoy. And that is also going to create a culture window for you. If you can find nonfiction books that you like in particular, those are going to teach you something, hopefully, and they're going to have fairly common language that's not too hard to understand, but then they're going to have all kinds of interesting grammatical structures. They're going to have different ways of phrasing things, new words you didn't know before, phrases you didn't know before, and because you're interested in the topic, it's easier to do. So that's why I call it a window. It's a window into the language because, hey, this is not so bad. I like this topic. But it's also a window into the culture. Culture is very important. We're going to get into that in a second. If you can get into the culture of the language, you become even more powerful as a communicator. You get better and better. It's really, really important. Now, the other side of this is writing. A lot of people don't want to write. A lot of people feel uncomfortable writing. But think about what writing is. Writing is output. It's structured output that forces you to create something in a thoughtful way. So if you learned a word or 10 words or some phrases or some grammar, and now you need to write an email to a colleague, or you're just writing for practice, or you have to write for something else. Maybe you're in a community and you write in a comment thread under posts. That's fine. All of that's good. That output is going to force you to put into practice the input stuff, right? We stop doing the output stuff after we graduate from university, and we say, okay, no more output based on learning. I'm just going to watch. I'm going to listen. I'm going to read. Well, what about the output? Why do teachers make us do homework? They make us do homework because they want us to get it deeply in our minds, right? So writing in English is a great way to do that. It's a great way to unlock, I could use it this way. That's very interesting. I could use this grammar to express that thought I have. The book I'm reading, I found a really interesting sentence. I like that structure that starts with a prepositional phrase. That's really interesting. I haven't used that a lot. I am now writing something. I'm going to take that same basic structure and I'm going to put it into practice. And then so you get an insight about how to use the language, and you get, of course, then, once you get used to that, a new ability. You internalize grammar. It's not just knowing it. Knowing it is one thing, that's great, but you want to burn it into your habits. You want to make it a deep habit, because when you're having a conversation, you don't want to have to be thinking about, okay, I was going to put this word order, this word goes before the other word, and then, what's the thing I learned about the present perfect tense? Should it be the present perfect tense or should I use the simple past tense? You don't have time to think about that stuff. So how do you burn it into your brain? Habits. How do you get habits? I think writing is one of the best ways to practice, honestly. So output makes things stick. Writing unlocks new abilities, things that you're learning. Input then become part of your natural abilities through output, and you learn all kinds of great grammar. Now, what about culture? I said culture, but what is the importance of culture? Why does culture matter? You may have heard me talk about this before, but I think it's very important to bear in mind that culture and language aren't separate things. If you're able to immerse yourself in a culture, you are learning the language, and when you're learning a language, whether you like it or not, you're being immersed in a culture. It's not like you can say, okay, here's language and here's culture. It's not like that. Because when we use language, we're talking within the context of a culture. We're making references to things in the culture. References to movies and TV shows. References to things that happened when we grew up, going to school. References to maybe the history of the country, right? All of the idioms and phrases are often connected to history, connected to the history of the language, right? How it developed. Why does this idiom mean that? What? Shotgun, what the heck? Why does that mean sit in the front seat? There's a reason. So it's connected. And if you commit to sort of fully immersing yourself in the culture, that, and by the way, that does not necessarily mean you have to live there. I'm not telling you have to live in the United States or Canada or something like that. You can now, the opportunity to immerse yourself in any language culture anywhere in the world is relatively easy because we have the internet, right? It's not that hard. So if you want to start to get some of those references, if you want to start to understand more deeply what's going on, not just the words and the phrases, but also, when I hear native speakers talking to each other, I hear the words, I understand the words, but I'm not making the connections. How are they talking to each other like that? I don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, that's the references part. Right? So it's absolutely critical. So that sounds pretty daunting and scary, right? Yeah, the key there is to follow your interests. Again, just like reading. The key that's going to keep you reading is to follow your interests. The key that's going to get you into the culture is to get into the culture via your interests. So make friends, explore things that you're interested in. These can be your windows into the culture. And I think you can use anything as a window. Maybe that's video games. Maybe that's conspiracy theories, right? I've been interested recently in learning about the Ice Age and the Younger Dryas and all of these theories about ancient civilizations. I've been in the rabbit hole on this for the last few weeks. But if I was interested in that as a non-native English speaker, well, I would have learned a lot of stuff by now, and I might have had a few live conversations, which I have had actually. So it's very important. And also that the part about finding the window is one of the things that allows you to be consistent, because you can keep doing it because your interest is the thing that's pulling you forward, rather than, okay, I got to do the thing, and you're forcing yourself. It's probably going to be difficult to continue. Okay, now what about teachers? They play a role. Now, I'm not saying that you should get a teacher forever, but I am saying that a teacher can be a very important part of your journey to identify things that you are not aware of, okay? Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be your teacher. I'm not. But you can find a teacher, and I'll tell you what to look for when you do. You want a teacher who's able to identify things specifically. If you try a class with a teacher and they say something like, your speaking is pretty good. I think you need to work on your grammar, or something general like that, hang up immediately. And that's just terrible. The key is to be able to identify whether or not they can identify specific things. Okay, one of the main issues you have with your speaking right now is you're using the same sentence structure for almost every single sentence. Almost every sentence starts with a person, a noun, subject, and then you have the classic structure, simple sentence, and then you say another sentence. Your syntax is terrible. You need to have much more interesting sentence structure. You need to know how to learn coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. You need to know how to start with prepositional phrases and dependent clauses. They need to be able to tell you what the issues are specifically. So find one who can do that. Maybe just take a few classes with them, 5 classes, something like that. Make that investment, because they're going to see things like a golf coach, like a tennis coach, that you aren't able to identify. It's also going to put you under some pressure, right? Having a bit of pressure from a person looking at you, evaluating you, is good if you get used to that feeling you're going to gain in confidence, right? They've also probably talked with a lot of students, so they're going to know what works pretty well for others who are in a similar situation to you. They're going to have some really good insights that might help you a lot. So being able to look at yourself objectively, once you have those insights, you can start to notice those things yourself. Sometimes they're hard to see if it's just you all by yourself all the time. So that's the potential value of having a teacher. And it's going to be difficult to find one for free, okay? Now, what about practice? Practice is obvious, right? Yeah, of course I should practice. I mean, yeah, you got to practice, duh, obviously. But I think there is a misunderstanding about what practice is. It's something that needs to become part of your life on a deeper level. And it can't just be a thing you do for 20 minutes twice a week, right? It's got to be slightly deeper. And also, I think people want to say, well, I'm going to learn first, and then I'm going to do more intense practice. First, let me learn the most common 2,000 words in the English language, and then I'm going to start doing some serious practice once I learn. So they do this sort of one-by-one approach. This is a mistake. If you keep getting ready, I'm going to do this and then I'll be ready to do the next thing. That's not how it works. Do everything all the time. If you have 2 strategies, one strategy is first learn vocabulary, then study grammar, then study pronunciation, then study this, right? That may be fine for an order of courses, right? Because you can't take a bunch of courses at the same time, probably. But in general, Do everything all the time. Listen all the time. Watch all the time. Read all the time. Write all the time. Speak all the time. Think all the time. Do everything all the time. And don't make these lines and these sort of steps, these weird steps where you have to get ready for the next thing. That's not how language learning works. Do as much as you can all the time. Make it flow into your lifestyle so that it feels natural, right? It shouldn't be forced. It should feel natural to you. And don't see it as practice. See it as just, hey, this is the stuff I do because I want to be a better communicator in English, right? But also make connections. You need to join groups. You need to reach out to others. You need to have conversation practice. This is a perfect opportunity to connect with others. Like in the Discord group we have, it's a great place to hang out. It's a really cool place to just talk about stuff. We have debates, we make jokes, we share stuff. I really like it. I've really been enjoying it. So that would be a good place to start, maybe the Discord, but there are so many other things you can do as well. Now, I would add to this the importance of recording and having some accountability, right? So if you have a practice buddy, that's good. A practice buddy is someone who's not necessarily a native speaker, but someone who is on the same journey as you. And you say to each other, every Wednesday we're going to do an assignment, a speaking practice. We're going to give each other feedback. We're going to record these. We're going to listen back to the recordings. And this is very powerful because it creates accountability. It creates the ability to see yourself objectively by listening to the recording, right? And having that back and forth, that pressure with something like a buddy can be very, very good. So overall for practice, do everything. Practice like a maniac, but in a sort of natural way, okay? Finally, consistency is key, and I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here. What tends to happen is when people get too excited about something, they say, oh, all right, here we go, I'm going to do it. And then their excitement burns out because they get excited about something else or whatever. So you have to find something deeper than short-term excitement. It's got to be a commitment to the process, a commitment based on a feeling of deeply wanting to get better, right? And I think the key to that is combining interests with things you do anyway, right? I talked about being interested in the Ice Age, learning about that. Well, if that's something that you want to learn about anyway, then just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to do that in English. By the way, I'm going to learn a lot of language, but I'm going to do it anyway in English. Force that. If it's career related, even better, right? If it can give you an advantage, even better. So where you can, do the things that you do anyway in English and allow those things that you do anyway in English to force you to be consistent. And again, as we talked about with practice, I would also recommend that you find ways to get accountability, whether that means having a buddy or maybe posting something regularly, a blog if you're working on your writing, and the people who read your blog will kind of force you to do that every week. So that's some accountability, okay? So these are the ways that you need to approach learning language, right? And I realize it's not for everybody, but this is what I have seen consistently work for people who are serious about it. You have to read, you have to write, you have to have cultural immersion. It's not just learning words, it's much deeper. Pay a teacher, get some objective feedback, practice like a maniac, record yourself, do assignments, get a buddy. Do everything. Listen, read, write, watch, speak, think. And be consistent. Don't give up. Find things that force you to stick with it and make it part of your life. And if you do all of that, you are going to make a lot of progress, okay? If you have any questions about this, let me know. If you're interested in making my courses part of that journey, you can check those out in the links in the description. You can get a free course. That is in the links in the description as well, and a 30% discount on all of my courses with a monthly membership. So check that out if you haven't done so already. Click the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe. And again, let me know where you are in the journey. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment as well.